Something about the way her story ended did not feel like an ending at all. It felt like something had been hidden for a long time and was only now being revealed, as if a final confession about Eden had been carried quietly across generations and was finally being spoken out loud. A woman sat at the edge of a cave, very near the end of her life. This was Eve, the one who had seen the garden with her own eyes. Around her were people who depended on her, who came from her, who listened closely but could never fully understand the weight of what she remembered. She was not confused, nor was she fading into fragments. She was clear, steady, focused in a way that felt intentional, as if she knew time was running out and there were things she could no longer keep to herself. And what she began to speak about was not only the past she had lived through, it was about what was still to come. She described a future that none of those sitting beside her would ever live to see. A world that would not remain whole or stable, but one that would shift, break, and reshape itself again and again. It would not stay the way they knew it, no matter how tightly they tried to hold on to it. Stability, she made them understand, was never guaranteed. And still, even with all of that, she did not leave them in fear. She left them with something stronger than that. A promise. She told them that no matter what would happen in the ages ahead, no flood would completely erase them. No fire would consume everything they were. What had begun with her would not end with her. The human line would continue, even through events that would feel powerful enough to undo everything. That alone could have been enough, but she did not stop there. Instead, she grew more precise, more certain. She spoke of a descendant, not as a distant possibility, not as something that might happen if the world survived long enough. She spoke of it as something inevitable, someone who would come from her own flesh, someone who would do what no one had been able to do since the moment they were driven out. He would return to the garden. He would pass through what had once been closed, and he would not return alone. He would bring everyone with him. That was the moment everything shifted. Up until then, her story had been rooted in memory. It had been about what was lost, what the world used to be, what people had slowly forgotten over time. But as she spoke those final words, the direction of everything changed. It was no longer only about looking back at what had been. It had become about what could be restored. What made it difficult to dismiss was not only what she claimed, but the way she had delivered it. There had been no hesitation in her voice, no searching for the right words, no effort to persuade or convince those around her. She had not spoken like someone guessing or hoping. She had spoken with a quiet certainty, as if she had already seen everything she's described. It did not feel like belief. It felt like memory, or something that had been shown to her and simply needed to be passed on before she was gone. Then the final day came. The passing from the 5th day into the 6th did not happen in any dramatic or obvious way. There was no sudden noise, no visible sign that something had changed. And yet, something had shifted. It was subtle, almost impossible to point to, but it was there. Something deeper than sight or sound. The people around her could feel it, even if they could not explain it. And when her breathing finally stopped, the world did not remain still. Beneath her, the ground began to move. It was not violent, not the kind of movement that brings fear or destruction. It did not resemble an earthquake. Instead, it was slow and steady, something deeper, like a pulse rising from within the earth itself. It came in a rhythm, repeating again and again. It felt like a heartbeat. It was as if the earth itself was responding, as if it recognized what was happening in that moment, because for the first time since the beginning of the story, the first human body was returning to the same dust from which it had once been formed. And those who stood around her understood without needing to speak that this was not an ordinary moment. They did not rush forward in panic. There was no chaos, no breaking down into confusion or fear. Instead, something else began, something that had never been done before. Carefully and with a kind of quiet awareness, they started to prepare her body. Every movement was deliberate. Nothing was rushed. Nothing was careless. Each action carried weight, as if they knew they were doing something that would matter long after this moment had passed. They wrapped her in white cloth, not for appearance, but as an act of respect. They gathered fragrant materials from the land and placed them upon her, not only to preserve her body, but to honor who she had been. What they were doing was more than a task. It became a pattern, something that would be repeated again and again across generations that had not even begun yet. The first funeral, when they were finished, they lifted her gently and began to carry her toward the cave. It was the same place where Adam had been laid only days before. But the cave was not just a burial site, it held things from the earliest days, objects that had been kept and preserved with care. Gold, incense, myrrh, items that had not been forgotten, only set aside, as if they had been waiting for this moment. And when it was time to lay her down, they did not separate them. They placed her beside him, on his right. Inside the cave, something began to change. The objects that had rested there for generations, the gold, the spices, the offerings that had been placed with care and left untouched, began to release a fragrance. It did not happen gradually, it came all at once. Sudden, unmistakable, strong enough to be noticed even beyond the entrance of the cave. People who were not standing nearby began to sense it, turning their heads, trying to understand where it was coming from, and yet when they tried to describe it, they found that they could not. It did not resemble anything they already knew. It was not like the scent of flowers, nor like wood, nor resin, nor anything that grew from the earth. There was no comparison that felt right. And still, despite how unfamiliar it was, it did not feel entirely new. There was something about it that felt strangely recognizable, as if it belonged to a memory that could not quite be reached. Something about it felt remembered. The fragrance did not vanish quickly. It lingered in the air, spreading further, settling into the space around it. People could feel it, experience it physically, even if they could not explain what it was or where it had come from. It became part of the moment, something that stayed with them long enough to be remembered, even if its meaning remained unclear. And then, as time passed, the story itself began to fade. Not all at once, and not completely, but slowly enough that it no longer existed in the same full form it once had. According to this tradition, what had happened at the end of her life, her visions, her final words, and her role in preserving what she had known, did not continue into the versions of history that later became widely accepted. Instead, her story was reduced, simplified, condensed into a single moment that people could repeat easily. Everything else was left behind, but not everywhere. In the highlands of Ethiopia, these texts were preserved. They were guarded carefully, passed down through generations of monks who believed that without her full story, something essential would be missing from the beginning of humanity itself. To them, this was not just an addition, it was something necessary. Because in this version, she was not remembered for failure, she was remembered for memory. For 6 days, she had been the only person alive who still carried a clear image of what the world had once been. Not as belief, not as a story shaped over time, but as something she had actually lived through. She had held that knowledge alone.